And as a child who was completely terrified of both my parents, I was always aware that this moment of grace, it meant something. We understood each other in a way. Me and my mom and my dad. As screwed up as we all were, we did understand each other. My mother, she knew what it's like to feel your entire life like you're drowning, with the exception of these moments. These very rare, brief instances in which you suddenly remember you can swim.
Today, I'd like to dive into something a little more heavy and personal than what we usually do in these analysis videos. In fact, this is the first video I'll be putting a very serious content warning on, as some of the topics we're talking about here are a little more adult and cross the line into discussions of sexuality and race. With that out of the way, let's begin. Moonlight is the story of Chiron, a kid growing up in the lower class areas of Miami. The movie is divided into 3 parts, each portraying Chiron at a different part of his life. The first chapter, Little, takes place when Chiron is in elementary school. The second chapter, Chiron, shows him in high school. And the third chapter, Black, depicts Chiron as an adult. But I prefer to look at it a bit differently. Psychologist Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development provide a lot of insight into the themes portrayed in Moonlight. The beginning of any child's school experience is summed up by the goal of accomplishment. With school comes expectations and tasks, and kids can either succeed or fail according to their view of the world. So what do Chiron's early school years look like? Inferiority. No matter who Chiron interacts with, he is constantly met with failure. He gets bullied by his peers and his mother, all for being different. There are only a few people that keep him going through this tough hit to his psychosocial development. His friend, Kevin, and his surrogate father figure, Juan, as well as Juan's partner, Teresa. As we will see in the film, these characters contribute to Chiron's ability to feel some sense of adequacy more than anyone else. Throughout this first chapter, we get the sense that something about Chiron is different. The movie seems insistent on telling us this, but we're not entirely sure what. What the movie is telling us is that there are times when Chiron feels scared and alone, and times when he feels he can open up. He is absolutely hesitant, but he does eventually learn to open himself up. And at its core, that is what the movie is about. Revealing yourself and learning to be okay with it.
In Moonlight, black boys look blue.
This is probably the most important line in the movie. In other words, the reference that's dying to be made here.
Look! The moonlight shows us for what we really are.
In a full in-depth analysis, I'll go into how the movie uses light and color to portray emotions, themes, and ideas. But for now, let's get back to the philosophy the movie is presenting us with. The idea that because of the expectations we face growing up, only around the people we trust most can we reveal who we are. Stage 5 of psychosocial development is often considered one of the most formative and challenging stages. This stage takes place through middle and high school, and is all about growing a sense of identity. In the film, Chiron is quite aware of the person he is quote-unquote supposed to be as a black man. However, his lack of toxic masculine traits leaves him alone in a culture that breeds and rewards those traits. He struggles to connect with his friend Kevin, who has become almost uncomfortably hyper-masculine. Without going into detail, this clearly has a massive effect on Chiron. He feels immense discomfort in a scene where Kevin describes in detail how he hooked up with a girl during school. In just one scene, the film is able to establish someone who is confident in their identity and someone who is not. What I find to be the most interesting part of this chapter is that it has a clear antagonist, something that the other chapters don't have. This antagonist is Tyrell. It is a common understanding that hating gay people is one trait of toxic masculinity, and it's something that I believe Tyrell embodies. The concept of homophobia is introduced lightly in the first chapter, but never is it fully present until the second chapter. Scenes between Tyrell and Chiron don't hold back from portraying the harshness of bullying and homophobia. This is highly intentional. It's supposed to create a sense of urgency, giving the audience a need to see resolution, either through Chiron accepting himself and his identity, or by changing it. This chapter, in essence, focuses on the creation and destruction of Chiron's identity, and the confusion it will create. With our two opposing characters created, the movie will now show us the ways that they either help create or destroy Chiron's identity. It's time to talk about the beach scene. Besides being a masterclass in how to create tension, specifically romantic, even sexual tension, without words in a scene, this scene is essential for how it aids to Chiron's identity, which he can feel validated in once again.
I want to do a lot of things that don't make sense. I didn't say it don't make sense.
But not for long. In one scene, the antagonist, Tyrell, takes down every bit of validation Chiron has been given by getting Kevin to beat him up. It is extremely painful to watch, because we know that Kevin doesn't want to do this, but he has to live up to the expectations people have of him. Not only that, but we can feel this sense of betrayal that Chiron must be feeling. The same person that had validated his identity, now beating him up just to preserve his own. This results in an incredibly immense confusion for Chiron, ultimately bringing him to snap. We build up tension as he makes his way towards the classroom. In the next second, on one hand, we, the audience, in this moment, feel a sense of relief. The bully has been defeated. In so many movies, this is a big climactic scene where our underdog hero finally delivers justice to the antagonist. But what sets those moments apart from Moonlight is how it portrays this moment. As soon as we hear the sound of the chair breaking against Tyrell, we feel a strong sense of relief. But then there's an immediate cut to Tyrell lying on the ground in the fetal position, looking just as vulnerable and scared as Chiron when he was being kicked on the ground. And just for a moment, a thought begins to sink in. Did Chiron make the right choice? Let's talk about this movie's casting. It's phenomenal, yes, but more importantly, the casting of Chiron at different ages is extremely intriguing. Alex R. Hebert and Ashton Sanders, who play Little and Chiron respectively, have a very similar build and face. It's easy to see that they are the same person at different ages. But the same can't be said for Trevante Rhodes, who plays Black. He's not exactly the tall and thin type, he's a muscular man. And for all the people that I've watched this movie with, this one shot at the beginning of the third chapter was extremely jarring. But this is all on purpose. The person that Chiron is, and the personality he created under the nickname Black, which was given to him by Kevin, are pretty much completely different. And if it's not easy to tell with the crown, bandana, gun, and music, he's trying to be almost exactly like how he probably perceived Juan as a kid. The one scene that I always find to be particularly subtle, yet perfect at portraying how Chiron really feels in this personality, is where he is arguing with a buyer about money. The argument gets more intense until Chiron recognizes that the person he's talking to is just a scared kid, the way he used to be, and maybe still is to an extent. But Chiron's character that he is burying underneath carries a theme that is a major part of the psychosocial development he would be going through. Isolation. Essentially, the goal of people going through this stage, which takes place during early adulthood, is to form strong bonds, specifically romantic ones, to create a feeling of intimacy. The alternative? Loneliness. And Chiron's world is filled with loneliness and isolation. He has his circles, sure, but none of the people he works with are in it for some kind of bond or friendship. They are simply customers. The people in his life that matter are either gone or left behind. So in the final chapter, Chiron seeks to repair the relationships in his life that he values the most. His relationship with his mother and his relationship with Kevin. In the full analysis, I'll explore Chiron's relationship with his mother and how it changes throughout the film. But in this video, I wanted to focus on the relationship between Chiron and Kevin. Last time these two interacted was when they were both in a deep state of confusion regarding their role and identity. But after Kevin reaches out to him, Chiron sees an opportunity to rebuild an intimate relationship that he had left behind many years ago. When they meet up at the restaurant Kevin works at, they quickly catch up, but Kevin feels that something isn't right. He doesn't feel that Chiron is opening up the same way he used to. The scene is so purposefully similar to the beach scene, where Chiron opens up about himself quite a bit, which is why that beach scene has the distinct blue hue to represent Chiron's true self. But in the restaurant, there's very little blue at all. In fact, considering the fact that orange, the dominant color in the background, is on the opposite of the color wheel as the color blue, it's pretty clear that the color contrast being created is meant to represent how much Chiron is still hiding himself. As they drive back to Kevin's house, the colors begin to change. And one detail I've always appreciated, that I only picked up upon a second viewing, is that when Kevin gets home, he changes into a blue shirt, with Chiron still wearing his black shirt. This entire time, Kevin has been trying to get Chiron to open up similarly to how he opened up on the beach. Chiron even sees the same beach while walking to the house. Chiron realizes at this moment that he can't continue to wait for a time to open up. He has to be the one to open up. So he finally does, and we feel such a powerful sense of relief. He breaks the character of Black and reveals himself. Without words, we see how happy Kevin is to see his friend open up again. He doesn't judge, he doesn't question, because that doesn't matter to him. He just wanted his friend to open up again. As they share one last intimate and close moment with each other, the film cuts to Little, bathed in blue light. Fully formed and fully open, he looks back at us, encouraging us to do the same. The challenges of navigating life while the world constantly expects things from you and punishes you for not living up to those expectations can be brutal. It can cause many people to go down a path they never wanted to go down, all for the sake of meeting expectations they should never have had placed on them from the beginning. Nevertheless, these expectations and punishments will always exist. As important as it is to grow and change, restricting ourselves from being the other, from moving away from those expectations, no matter how much they surround and seem to control us, is vital to living a happy life. Moonlight has helped me, as I'm sure it has helped many others, remember that it shouldn't matter what other people choose for us to be. We decide that for ourselves. The people that matter most to us are willing to build bonds with us because of who we are, not because of who we pretend to be or what they think we should be. In a similar way, I feel a strong bond with the film itself. It has found a way to feel like a friend, encouraging me to open up. And if you choose to watch it, I hope it helps you the same way that it has helped me. Thanks for watching. Isolation. Whoops.